What's going on, guys, and welcome to my audio review for the March 15th, 2024 edition of Friday Night SmackDown. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. A pretty good edition of SmackDown, I thought, on Friday night. Not the strongest show they've done in recent weeks, but between the Rock concert to start the show, Bayley and Dakota Kai main eventing, and some tag team qualifiers, and some more Mania matches being confirmed for the card in a couple of weeks, I thought this was a pretty good edition of SmackDown overall. I enjoyed the energy from the fans in the building, some of the matches we got, and I enjoyed the show for what it was. I thought it was a better show than last week, which to me, aside from the final segment, really came off like a transitional, inconsequential filler show. I thought this was a pretty significant improvement, actually, over last week. No barn burners, but some quality action and a lot of WrestleMania developments. And this was a show without Rollins, Rhodes, Reigns. We did have Rock. He was enough. We have Reigns and Cody on next week's show facing off, which will be cool. I'll be at SmackDown in 2 weeks in Mohegan Sun, so I'm looking forward to that one. That's going to be a fun show. Hoping we get some star power on that one. They're not currently advertising Rock or Roman, Cody or Rollins, but it would be cool to get at least Rock or Roman on that show. I have actually never seen Rock in person. Now, I'm definitely going to Mania, so I'll see Rock there, of course, on probably both nights, I'm sure. Definitely night one, as we know. But I've never actually seen him in person at a WWE show, just in person in general, actually. So it would be cool to kind of get that experience before Mania, but if I have to wait until WrestleMania, that's fine too. Rock's been putting in the work, though. I saw a tweet last night that said that Rock has been on more WWE shows this year so far than Roman Reigns. He's probably appeared, 7 times so far this year? The last 3 weeks, this week, last week, and the week before, he was on the press conference, which is 4. He was on the night where he confronted Roman Reigns and, Cody Rhodes, and the whole internet exploded, myself included. That would have been 5. That was the week right after the Royal Rumble. He was on the show where he did his first heel promo. That would have been 6. And then he was on the show at the very beginning of the year, the day one show, the very first show of 2024, that episode of Raw, where he confronted and laid out Jinder Mahal. So I think he's made 7 appearances so far in 2024. Roman, I'm not sure. I forgot how many times he appeared going into the Rumble, coming out of the Rumble, whatever. So it's probably on par, if not higher, which is pretty funny. Roman will be appearing next week, like I said, but we've had a lot of Rock recently, which is great because these promos have been awesome. I did not catch the promo we cut on Twitter, on social media yesterday. It was like an 8 or 9 minute promo. It was not the 21-minute promo from 2 weeks ago. That one I did watch. I did not see the one from last week, although I saw the clips and I saw the fucking picture of Rock wearing a cowboy hat, because weren't they in Texas last week? That's why he was wearing that. Just crazy shit. But he's made a weekly tradition. Now, I don't know if this is going to carry on to next week when he's not on SmackDown. I don't know if he's going to put in the time to cut another promo. But he's made it now a weekly tradition to cut a promo on Cody Rhodes and Rollins and his entire family in these unedited Twitter promos. And he has more leeway with what he can say on that because he's swearing, he's dropping F-bombs and saying all this shit, not having to worry about time constraints and crowd responses and entrances and stuff like that. Like last week was egregious. Last week we had maybe, not even 10 minutes. It was probably 7 to 8 minutes of an actual confrontation between the two teams on the WrestleMania 40 Night 1 main event. Whereas 20 minutes or so, maybe not 20 minutes, but it was a long time devoted to entrances for Rock and for Roman and Cody and Seth and the pomp and circumstance, which I'm all for, don't get me wrong. But when it comes at the expense of the actual substance and not the style, that's a problem. This week, Rock did have an entrance. It did not last nearly as long. But before doing the Rock concert, we had the return, probably the best part of this entire segment, the return of the Hollywood Rock theme song. Now, people were wondering this, if they would bring it back, if he would use it again. He hasn't used it since 2003, when we got Hollywood Rock the first time for like mere months, from early 2003 through the Goldberg match at Backlash. We probably only had that song for about 2 months. I don't think he's used it a single time on TV since then. He's been using the same song on WWE TV since coming back in February of 2011. And it's a great song. I love the song that he has now, the babyface song, whatever. That initially hit when he came out here, and I thought we might get a new theme a couple of weeks ago when he first turned heel. And it didn't happen, so I'm thinking it's not going to happen. But the music hits here, and I love the new like the lightning bolt effect they have going on now with Rock and the lights going out. I think it's pretty cool, actually. It's pretty fucking cool. So that happens, and then it kind of fades into the Hollywood Rock theme. I don't know how many people in the building actually recognized it. I mean, there was a nice pop for it, but I'm not sure if it was for the music or for just Rock walking towards the ring, which they have a tendency to do. They just pop for Rock walking towards the ring because the guy's just such a megastar, obviously. But hearing the song was cool, man. Like, I wasn't watching wrestling when he was initially doing the Hollywood Rock stuff 20 years ago, so I don't have the same attachment to the song that other people do. But just the idea that they brought it back, and it's a great fucking song with the guitar solo and shit, that riff, it's sick. So the fact they brought it back for Hollywood Rock in 2024 is awesome. Very awesome. So, and it also suits his new persona more than the other song does, which he can always use when he goes back babyface inevitably or after Mania, because we might not be getting heel Rock for long. We might not be getting for much longer. It might only be a couple more weeks before he goes back to being babyface at WrestleMania. I hope not, but that could be the direction they're going in. Either way, I thought this Rock concert was entertaining. Was it on the same level as the one from 20 years ago? Probably not. I don't remember the 2013 one all that much, aside from the fact that he made fun of Vicky Guerrero. But he had some pretty good lines here. The crowd was into it. I was into it. It was fun. It was entertaining. It was funny at times as well. So I thought this was good. And the best part about it as well was that he got serious when he needed to, shifting the tone at the end, directly talking to Cody Rhodes right into the camera, directing his responses towards Cody Rhodes' mother specifically, because Cody was crying on Monday about literally crying. And I love the passion and the emotion, but he can't be crying every single week, obviously. But he mentioned that he can't put the belt in Dusty's hands. He can't do that anymore because Dusty passed almost 10 years ago, but he can put it in the hands of his mother. And Rock brought that up and mocked Cody for crying and said that he'll whip Cody's ass in front of the mother on night one. So he's really making it about himself, is heel Rock, which you would expect with him being a heel. They do have to be careful, though, which I thought they did a good job of on Monday this past week and hopefully next week on SmackDown, of making the entire weekend revolving around The Rock. The Rock is doing great work right now. I'm glad they turned him heel. The fact of the matter is he is not involved in the championship match on night 2. I mean, he will be involved in terms of getting involved or interfering or whatever. He might even be the referee. He might even appoint himself the referee coming out of the result of night 1. We just don't know yet. But he's not wrestling for the championship. He's not defending the championship. It's Roman and Cody 2, a rematch from last year. And that is really where the focus should be. The Rock stuff is great. I'm glad we're getting as much of him as we are. He's phenomenal in this role. He's really making the most of it. But they got to be careful to shift the focus too far away from the Cody and Roman stuff on night 2, which is even more important because that's where the championship is at stake of almost 4 years and blah, blah, blah. Cody finishing the story. Cody winning or losing on night 1 is not finishing the story. Winning on night 2 would be finishing the story. So they got to be careful. But like I said, I thought Cody did a good job on Monday's Raw of directing the focus back to the night 2 main event. They're going to have Cody and Roman go face-to-face next week on SmackDown. Rock will not be there. If he was, they probably would advertise him. But I'm looking forward to that, though. I'm looking forward to seeing what Roman and Cody can stir up without Rollins and Rock being in their respective corners for that segment next week on SmackDown. So this was a bit confusing. They announced a tournament on SmackDown for the next couple of weeks where the winners of these matches will advance in a... We've had so many fucking tournaments in this company. I make fun of AEW, and I've criticized AEW in the past for having way too many tournaments. We're having one right now for the AEW World Tag Team titles. For the now vacant AEW World Tag Team Championship. WWE, since Triple H took over, has also done a lot of tournaments, including in NXT. But we're getting a mini one now on SmackDown, where the winners of the matches on this show will face each other, probably not next week, they didn't say, but probably in 2 weeks. And the winners of that match will then advance to WrestleMania to qualify for the Undisputed WWE Tag Team Titles 6-Pack Challenge ladder match. What a fucking mouthful, I know. But that's going to be a mess of a match. It should be fucking awesome, I think, but I'm looking forward to it. So here it was Legado del Fantasma, represented by Angel and Berto. They went back to calling him just Berto, by the way. He went from being Humberto Carrillo, I think, to just Humberto after a certain point. I know they called him Humberto in the initial Los Lotharios gimmick. It was Angel and Humberto. And then they gave them their last names back in NXT. They were Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo again. Came back to the main roster as just Angel and Humberto. And then he went to being Angel, and then it went to just being Berto. And then he went back to being just Humberto, and now he's back to being Berto. So the man's gone through what feels like a million name changes in the past several years. But whatever. It's not really about that, I guess. But they did win here against the LWO Cruz del Toro, Joaquin Wilde. They will advance in this mini tournament to face, spoiler alert, New Catch Republic, who did advance later on in the show. But I thought this was a fun match. The two teams are feuding anyway, so three of the four qualifying matches make sense on SmackDown. Not that they really have to because it's a tournament. It's a tournament, so they don't really have to be storyline-driven matches. But three of the four matches we did get or are getting are logical. Like, for example, they did this match. The two teams are feuding anyway. Makes perfect sense. New Catch Republic and Pretty Deadly, which we got a little bit later on, which I'll get to. They've been feuding for what feels like a fucking year. I mean, I almost said Berto. Butch / Pete Dunne has been feuding with Pretty Deadly for literally the last year. And then he got a new partner in Tyler Bate. And they've also had a couple of matches with Pretty Deadly for the past number of months since the beginning of the year. And, they've been feuding. And hopefully this is the blow-off and we get no more from those two teams. We don't really need it, obviously. So they've been feuding. We're getting in another tournament qualifying match next week. It's going to be AOP and the Profits, a rematch from a few weeks ago. So that match makes sense because those two teams / factions have been feuding for weeks, for months actually. The only qualifier that doesn't make sense is the OCs, Gallows and Anderson, who I don't think have had a match on this show in like 6 or 7 months as a team. It has been a long time. Gallows was hurt for a while. I know they're doing their thing right now in NXT, but they have not had a match on SmackDown in what feels like forever. So they're going to be in action next week against, God, who was the team? I don't remember. What was the team left that, I don't think it's a team that they'll probably be beating either. I don't remember. Is it Pretty Deadly? No, Pretty Deadly was on this show. Man, I don't remember who the team is, to be perfectly honest with you. But they're in action next week, and I remember seeing the match as like, what the fuck is this? Oh, Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. That's what it was. Again, a match that really makes no sense. It's not like Theory and Waller have been feuding with the OC or AJ Styles or whatever, so it's not really a match that stands out as being special. But we are getting that match next week on the show as part of this tournament. So Legado advancing here. I don't see them going to Mania as part of this tournament. I'll get to Mysterio and Escobar later on and where I think that's going. But I don't think Legado are going to Mania for the tag team titles anyway. Speaking of Mania, though, we did have LA Knight out next with Kayla Braxton, and not in the ring either. It was an interview, but they did it on the stage, which I thought was a nice touch. They obviously did that to set up the angle here with AJ Styles attacking him from behind, and you could have done that in the ring, I suppose, but I thought it was a nice touch. They did it on the ramp, which they've done with Cody Rhodes and Jackie Redmond on Raw in the past year. It's a nice change from what they were doing previously. I like the podium they had on Raw a couple of years ago. Very brief, very short-lived. Back when Kevin Patrick was with the company, and as an interviewer, they were doing the interviews on this little podium by the commentary table at that point. Or I don't know if the commentary table was still on the stage at that point, but that's where they had the podium. They don't do that anymore, but they were doing the interview here in the on the rampway, which I thought was cool. So Kayla asked LA Knight about AJ Styles, and he said he won't rest until he has his hands on AJ, challenging him to a match at WrestleMania. AJ attacks him from behind, hits him with the chair, and accepts the challenge for a Mania match. So pretty basic stuff here. I thought it was a well-done angle. Good heat on AJ. Great pop for LA Knight. Despite the guy really cooling off as far as booking-wise in the past number of months, they've done a good job of keeping LA Knight relevant in programs, giving him something to do, but he does need a win at WrestleMania. I mean, I could see AJ winning to extend the feud, but LA Knight really should be winning his WrestleMania debut. I know AJ Styles didn't against Chris Jericho back in Mania in 2016, but by that point, AJ had won a number of matches, and especially at Fastlane, he had a strong showing in the Royal Rumble. LA Knight has had some strong showings recently, but he lost at Elimination Chamber, he lost at the Royal Rumble, he lost at Crown Jewel against Roman Reigns. He needs a win at WrestleMania. I'm glad he's even on the Mania card. It's not the match I would have booked for LA Knight at WrestleMania, but I'm glad we're getting it. At least he's on the show, and I think it should be a good match. They didn't announce a stipulation, because I'm thinking it would be great if they announced like a no DQ stipulation or falls count anywhere or whatever. They have yet to announce a stipulation, and people have said, oh, they're not doing one because they're doing Bloodline rules on the night too, which is basically a no DQ match. I have seen plenty of WrestleManias. 2 nights, 1 night, doesn't matter. Or they did 2 of a very similar stipulation on the same show. So that is not stopping them, I don't think, from doing a Falls Count Anywhere match or a no DQ match on night 1, especially if Roman and Cody, Rock will probably get involved anyway, like I said. I mean, they could do Bloodline rules for that one. They could do this as a no DQ match as well. It kind of feels like it should be a no DQ match or a hardcore match, street fight. It's all basically the same thing anyway. So that's what I would do. But I thought this was a good angle. Again, not the Mania match I was hoping for LA Knight. I was hoping he would go to Mania, challenge for the United States Championship, win the United States Championship. But as we found out also on the show, that's not going to be happening. So we also had Jay, his WrestleMania challenge to Jimmy being accepted by Jimmy backstage. Another Mania match made official. We had Randy Orton versus Grayson Waller on the show as well. Kind of a follow-up to last week's tag team match with Orton and Owens beating Waller and Theory. He beat Theory one-on-one a couple of weeks ago. So we had Orton and Waller for the first time ever one-on-one here. A good, nice, fun match. Waller's looked very good in defeat the last couple of weeks. He's not being protected by any means, but, he and Theory are like the fall guys for Owens and Orton right now. I mean, they've been feuding with Owens for like 5 or 6 months since Owens arrived on SmackDown, so that's really nothing new. But I thought they had a good match here. Orton won. The real talking point, the real focal point came after the fact, after the match, when Nick Aldis came out, interrupted Logan Paul, who was on this show. I think he was on commentary, if I'm not mistaken. He interrupted Logan Paul and said, because Logan Paul had teamed up on Orton and Owens afterward and tried to attack him. Orton and Owens got the better of them, and that RKO spot from Orton to Theory, was just ridiculous. It was so ridiculous, it was sick, where he sold the stunner, and he popped up, and Orton hit him with the RKO on his way down. Just completely fucking ridiculous. They cannot make a point to do that all the time. Maybe the Theory, who does oversell a lot of stuff, but it was very well done. But anyway, so Logan Paul escapes the ring. Nick Aldis interrupts him and makes it official for the United States Championship at WrestleMania. It will be Logan Paul defending against Randy Orton and Kevin Owens in a triple threat match. Again, I would have preferred to see LA Knight versus Logan Paul, but that would have left people like Orton, Owens, AJ without a logical match. We've already seen Owens and AJ. We've seen Orton and AJ, actually both matches at WrestleMania. We haven't seen Owens and AJ at WrestleMania, but they did have a pretty extensive feud a few years back. We've seen Orton and AJ at Mania before, obviously. And Orton and Owens could have made sense, but then you don't have a Mania match for AJ, and I think he deserves one, so... this kind of gets everyone in the card. There are logical matches to do, and that's fine. Hopefully Logan Paul retains. That's the thing, too, with the triple threat match. I think he can get away with retaining. He doesn't have to pin Orton. I think he can beat Owens, and that way Orton's protected in defeat. And I don't think Orton's lost a single match yet since being back in WWE, like a singles match where he was pinned. Actually, he was pinned in Elimination Chamber, so that's actually not true. But beyond that, though, I don't think he's been pinned yet since being back in WWE, since returning from injury late last year. And I hope he can pin Owens and finish up that feud, and maybe we can get back to Logan Paul and Orton one-on-one down the road. But I really maintain that it should be LA Knight winning that championship from Logan Paul ultimately. We had Santos Escobar taking on Dragon Lee one-on-one here. A rematch from their few matches that they had late last year on SmackDown in that Survivor Series. They had back-to-back matches as part of the United States Championship Tournament and at Survivor Series right before that. Those were really good matches. Those got more time than this did. This literally only went like 2 minutes. Dragon Lee, we have not seen in action on the show in months, and his first match back was a quick squash from Santos. Not every match can be a 10-minute barn burner, but I thought that was kind of disappointing. I was really hoping for more from these two. It was nice while it lasted, but you really can't do much in 2 minutes. So Escobar wins, as he should have. I like Dragon Lee a lot, but Escobar is the one with a big program right now with Rey Mysterio. As advertised, Rey Mysterio comes out after the fact, saves the LWO, saving Dragon Lee and Carlito and whatever. And Rey Mysterio challenges him to a match not at WrestleMania, but next week. And it was made official. So they're having a match next week on SmackDown. I am not a fan of where this is going. Now, if this is headed to them one-on-one, it ends in a no contest or never gets started or something along those lines, then great. And then they can have a stipulation match at Mania. Where I think this is headed, though, is some sort of a multi-man, multi-person match at Mania with all the members of Legado and all the members of LWO, or most of them, at Mania. If I had to take a guess, it would probably be, I guess you could put Wild and Del Toro in there because they're the original members of LWO. It would probably be Escobar, Angel, and Berto. I would not put... I like Zelina Vega a lot, and I feel bad for not putting her in the match, but Elektra Lopez does not need to be in there. They can be in the corner. I'm sorry. They do not need to be part of that match. They probably would be, but whatever. So you can do an 8-person with those 4 on the Legado side. And then on the LWO side, it would be Rey, Zelina, if Elektra's on the other side. And then instead of Del Toro and Cruz, you can put in Carlito and Dragon Lee. Dragon Lee's not a full-blown member of the group as far as I know, as part of LWO. But you could do that. I wouldn't do that necessarily. I prefer a singles match personally between Santos and Rey. I just feel like Santos gets way more out of that by beating Rey one-on-one than them just winning a fucking multi-man match. That could be won by the LWO anyway. Escobar should not be losing a Mania. I mean, he really needs to be elevated up the card, and the only way that happens is if he beats Rey Mysterio. I don't know. I mean, they could do that in a tag team match, but I just don't really think you're getting the most out of them in that setting if it's a multi-man match and not one-on-one. I also fear if they were to do the multi-man match, that sounds like it could be fun. That sounds like a recipe for getting your match time cut, and it ends up only going 3 minutes. I'm thinking the friggin' 8-man tag team match from Mania 27, among other matches they've done at Mania over the years, where it only went maybe a minute. Big Show's Team 1 completely squashed the Core, who were a loser faction anyway, but that loss did them no fucking favors. I could easily see this doing the same thing, where a segment on Mania goes long, and then these guys, and potentially girls, get their time cut by only going 2 or 3 minutes. At least Escobar beating Rey in 2 or 3 minutes would be very disappointing for a Mania match, but he would gain more from that than either losing or winning in a random match. Not random, but like a match that we could just see on SmackDown. My personal opinion, but that's really where I would like to see them go with this, is Escobar and Rey one-on-one, but they're doing it next week, which tells me they're probably doing the multi-man match in Mania, which I'm not a fan of, but whatever. We had the other match in the tag team tournament here, New Catch Republic taking on Pretty Deadly. Like I said, a match that made sense. They've been feuding on and off for God knows how long now, for many months. And it was a good match. They actually worked well together, got some time. Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate going over here clean. I love Pretty Deadly. I mean, they've been consistently on SmackDown, really since being called up. I don't know how much they're getting over, really, but they've won their fair share of matches. Not against these two. They've lost every single match they've had against Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, but they were beating the Brawling Brutes a lot during their time feuding last year. So I thought this was a fun match. Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, I do think of this little mini tournament that we're getting between these teams, are going to be winning. So I see them beating Legado whenever they do the match, probably in 2 weeks. And then on the other side of the bracket, probably Waller in theory. I don't think OC are going to Mania. It's either Waller in theory or I could see it being the Profits. I could definitely see the Profits advancing because they're a top team and they've been a part of Mania the last couple of years. They were at Mania last year, the year before. Had they been at Mania every year? They were not there in 2021. They were on the SmackDown before, I think, Mania, the SmackDown right before Mania. In that tag team title match. They were not at Mania itself. They were at Mania in 2020. The COVID one. Wasn't really anything spectacular, but they were on that show. So I could see them probably advancing of those teams. Waller, in theory, could always get involved in the triple threat match, which is probably more likely anyway. The main event on the show saw Bayley take on Dakota Kai. First time ever one-on-one. Really good stuff here. Didn't get a ton of time, but I thought Dakota Kai looked great in the time that she was given here. She hasn't been in the ring in a singles match in almost a year, but she looked great. She and Bayley clearly comfortable with each other because they were beating the shit out of each other in that ring. It really felt like it was hard-hitting, personal, physical between the two. Like seeing that. Bayley won by DQ. Io Sky got involved, hit Bayley with the belt. That was fucking lame. You're not going to beat Bayley or probably not Kai via pinfall clean a couple weeks before Mania if you just turned Dakota Kai into this, not big heel, but like she turned on Bayley and has some heat right now. You're probably not just going to straight up beat her. But I thought that was disappointing. So, the match was good, though. I liked the way that it ended. No, I didn't like the way that it ended. I'm sorry. I like the match itself. I like the way the show ended is what I meant to say. Naomi came out to make the save. She was also outnumbered by Damage Control, and that was how they went off the air, with Damage Control standing tall. No Bianca Belair. No Tiffany Stratton on the show either. But no Bianca Belair. I could see a scenario where they built a Naomi and Bianca facing the Kabuki Warriors for the tag team titles of WrestleMania, but not Bianca coming to Bayley's aid. They might build to that, but I like right away, and they alluded to this on SmackDown last week, and it was also, I think, on Talking on SmackDown Lowdown or whatever. It was definitely on SmackDown itself, actually, now that I think about it. That segment with Bianca and Naomi where she told Naomi, listen, you were not here when Damage Control were running rampant on this brand, and on Raw as well, making life miserable for me and everyone else. So, no, I'm not going to help out Bayley. She deserves everything that's coming to her. And, And that's where what her stance is, and it makes perfect sense. And I like the fact they're sticking to that. And she's not just saving Bayley because, she's a fellow babyface now, so I'm going to save her, blah, blah, blah. No, I like that a lot. So I like what they're doing here. And we'll see who else comes to Bayley's aid. It's not going to be Sasha Banks. We know that. She went to AEW as Mercedes Moné, so she's not going to be back anytime soon, although she did say in the interview about a week or two ago she will be back one day. She knows that, too. She made that pretty clear. It probably will be Bianca, but maybe not coming to Bayley's aid as much as she would be Naomi's aid, would be my guess. But I thought this was a thumbs-up show. I liked the Rock concert that started the show, like I said. I liked the main event for the most part. The tag team qualifiers got us closer to WrestleMania. We found out more about the WrestleMania card with LA Knight, AJ Styles, Jimmy vs. Jay, and the United States Championship match all being made official. I was hoping Rey and Santos would be added to that. That'll probably be added to Mania. Not the one-on-one match, unfortunately. Very likely some sort of a multi-man match or a multi-person match. Whatever. We'll find out next week. At least it gets them on the card, I would hope. And it's not WrestleMania SmackDown or some shit like that. But yeah, I thought this was a fun show. I'm looking forward to being at the Blue Brand in 2 weeks at Mohegan Sun. Full on-site report coming from that show in 2 weeks. Until then, though, we're going to have another audio review of SmackDown coming next Saturday here on the channel. Thank you guys for checking out this review. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Enjoy Austin 316 Day today. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and in the words of the Texas Rattlesnake himself, I'll catch your ass down the road.